It reads, if any adjectives can describe Brianna Milne, they would be outgoing, eccentric, passionate, adventurous, and friendly. The list can keep going because she has that smile that makes everyone take notice of her. That's who she is. Brianna is always willing to engage in controversial topics, regardless of whether she's right or wrong. Sorry. And she's always delighted to hear any diversity of opinions. She's currently studying as a fourth-year English major with a minor in theology and history. After graduating, she hopes to travel, become a teacher, and eventually pursue a PhD in theology. Brianna chose 50 Shades of Grey as she was challenged by Dr. Garrison. The title of her paper is Feeding the Fantasy, Locating Voice in 50 Shades of Grey.
You guys don't look as intimidating up here as I thought you would. I'm very relieved. Audre Lorde once said, "In touch with the erotic, I become less willing to accept powerlessness, or those other supplied states of being which are not native to me, such as resignation, despair, self-effacement, depression, and self-denial." A year ago, a friend of mine recommended 50 Shades of Grey as a great romance novel that I would absolutely love. It wasn't until after I read the series that I became aware of the phenomenally polarized reviews the books were receiving. It seemed that women either love them or loathe them, with very few opinions in between. Given the series' incredible popularity, one might assume that there would have been more middle ground. After all, it set the record for the fastest-selling paperback of all time. Collectively, the trilogy shifted over 10,509,988 copies in the year 2012 alone. It even outsold J.K. Rowling's Harry Potter series. Sorry, Heather. Records show that approximately 80% of the readership was female. As someone who had read the books and had a very grave reception, I was curious as to just what exactly caused such extreme attitudes, and so I began my research. After a great deal of contemplation, I came to the conclusion that it was the ambiguous voice that created a unique situation in which some women found the novels empowering, while others found them degrading. The gendered power struggle, the obsessive romantic love interest, and the explicit sexual exploration were all conditions that lent themselves to an ambiguous voice. Before I break this down into more digestible components, let me first provide a working definition of voice. For the purpose of my essay, I examined voice as agency. It is a presence, the authority he or she has over his or herself. In essence, how one might identify oneself, one's thoughts, beliefs, values. If anyone in this room has ever received a paperback from a professor with almost illegible writing in the margins, saying, use your own voice, use your own argument, you know exactly what I'm talking about. One of the key reasons many readers found the novel empowering is the way E.L. James set up the female protagonist, Anastasia Steele, as an underdog, which at first would seem empowering. The underdog and Prince Charming combination quickly becomes disempowering when one examines the content of the novel and realizes that it is Anna that sets herself as the underdog and puts Christian, the male protagonist, on a pedestal. Anna is a character with whom many females can relate. She is educated, critical, and a cautious woman. Her self-description was pale with brown wayward hair, is rife with insecurities, which she blatantly emphasizes as not in keeping with the idealized beauty commonly portrayed in modern media today. The delicate balance between her empowering and disempowering characteristics creates a situation where Anna acts as a surrogate space into which female readers project themselves. Anna, as underdog, comes into play when she is placed in the shadow of her male counterpart, Christian Grey. Christian is tall, powerful, driven, controlling, arrogant, scary, charismatic, cryptic, confident, commanding, autocratic, cold, and let us not forget, so gorgeous. Anna's inner thoughts, which are quite frequently portrayed given the first-person perspective of the novel, evolve into distinct manifestations of her personality, consisting of her subconscious and her inner goddess. Anna's inner goddess is the personified inner thoughts of her sexual desires. It is typically Anna's more curious, adventurous, carefree persona, one of the only aspects of her character that is not intimidated by Christian. Anna's inner goddess is an empowering voice in that she voices her desire to explore her sexuality, but she is disempowering in that her voice and her desires are consistently manipulated by Christian's voiced desires. The voice of Anna's subconscious is deceivingly ambiguous. She initially appears empowering because of her confident, take-no-prisoners attitude, her no-nonsense criticisms of Christian's actions. Her voice is obscure in that she's also Anna's most stringent critic. Any empowering commentary produced by Anna's subconscious is always negated by expressions of insecurity or self-loathing. For instance, she once said, she says that Anna can only pretend to be a car, like Christian's other possessions, and that perhaps if Christian were more normal, he would find her less attractive. The empowering, confident, and critical voice representing Anna is made ambiguous and disempowering when it is overlaid with censorious, insulting, and disparaging tones. While initially the sexual adventures in which Anna and Christian participate seem to be empowering for women's sexuality, the focus of the intercourse is predominantly on Christian's desires, Christian's prowess, and Anna is the passive recipient of his sexualized initiatives. The relationship between Christian and Anna is weighted by images of Christian as the confident and active as constantly feeling lost, insecure, inadequate. The novel is overwhelmingly in favor of Christian as the instructor, and Anna is the stumbling student constantly following in his wake. This ambiguous imbalance of voice is disempowering because it reproduces common sexual myths. Number one, that women are not empowered to voice their sexual desires for fear of being stigmatized as a slut. Two, that the sexual double standard where men are expected, even celebrated, to be the telepathic sexual dominant. The novels reiterate that men are naturally the dominant partner and women are naturally the submissive partner. This is quite misleading and disempowering to women, that female sexual submission is the norm and that naivete is desirable. While the books have a significant and intentional focus on bondage discipline, domination submission, sadism, masochism, otherwise known as BDSM, relationship there is an understated message that the sexual scenario is merely an exaggeration of the idealized norm as man is dominant, woman as submissive. What one might initially assume would be the most liberating aspect of the novel, the exploration of women's sexuality, is in fact just another example of the submissive female voice. Mainstream psychiatry regards sadism and masochism as disorders, and James attempts to complicate this diagnosis by complicating Christian's reasons for desiring a dominant relationship. For him, it creates a means of absolute control. It enables him to hurt and degrade women in a socially acceptable manner. For him, even the reason he longs to degrade women is made ambiguous because it is blamed on the abuse he experienced as a child. Therefore, it's not his fault he desires to hurt women, and so women cannot blame him for his desires. Providing a reason for Christian's undesirable traits creates a unique circumstances where Anna is placed in a nurturing role. Later in the series, Anna manages to lure Christian out of the BDSM lifestyle and into a more romantic relationship, thereby contradicting the field of psychiatry and therefore empowering her own voice. If Christian remained true to his reasons for desiring a dominant sexualized relationship, he would have been considered unsuitable by the mass female readership. Given that Anna was able to save him, he has been demoted from kinky sexual monster to merely poor, fucked up, kinky, philanthropic Christian. James romanticizes the portrayals of control and possession in the novel. The romantic lens eases the reader into accepting Anna and Christian's relationship without critically examining the content. Their relationship is constructed to appear as an overwhelming, mindless, ultimate love, rather than a more moderate love. The mindless element of the relationship is sharply contradicted when it is consistently portrayed by Christian that for him, the dominant sexualization is about control. The need for possession and control is characterized as a level of intimacy that most people are unable or not fortunate enough to experience. This intimacy and possession is expressed through sex, as if the highly eroticized encounters compensate for the discrepancies in other aspects of their relationship. Some women found this extreme imagery to be empowering because it illustrates what James sets up as an ideal love. Other women found the novel degrading because they interpreted the extreme descriptions as dispowering to Anna's voice. Anna's reaction when she and Christian break up is in keeping with the imagery James creates of an extreme and mindless love. Anna ends up in a catatonic state, and she loses weight. Her health is at risk when she's not with him. Anna describes the pain of breakup as crippling, indescribable, physical, mental, metaphysical, seeping into the very marrow of her bones. This is an especially dangerous representation of love that so many thousands of women are desiring or even craving when they read this novel. It illustrates a love so strong that one cannot exist without one's partner. The trilogy is creating a destructive worldview that somehow true love eliminates the need, desire, or the ability to think clearly, rationally, and independently. This is disempowering to Anna's voice in that she has no voice, strong or otherwise, when she is not with her male counterpart. One of the reasons 50 Shades series has been condemned in mass media is because it is considered to be damaging to society. Part of this fear is the reputation of romance readers. They are portrayed as blind, uncritical, a cult-like following, if you will. Unfortunately, I do not have time today to fully deconstruct the community of romance readers, but I will say that it is important to know why they are reading romance novels, in particular 50 Shades of Grey, and thus understand the nature of the polarized reviews. Many people fear that because women are reading unrealistic portrayals of love, that women will integrate those beliefs into their everyday lives. While this is true to a very great extent, one must not throw the entire genre out the window, assuming that people, romance readers in particular, are a flock of ignorant sheep who follow where the author leads. Some reviewers note that the BDSM in the novels is degrading to women, and this is why the books are disempowering. Others note that it is the obsessive and unhealthy love interest that is degrading. On the opposite spectrum, studies of female readers and non-readers of romance novels found that readers self-reported a stronger sexual relation and having a stronger sexual relation twice as high as non-readers. Readers often see the love story as a positive reflection on heteronormative relationships, that a woman can be nurtured and cared for even by a man who appears gruff and indifferent. Janice Radway notes, "It must be emphasized that romance communities interpret these stories as chronicles of female triumph. The important information out of this is that romance novels, in this case 50 Shades, have the potential to be empowering and disempowering, and a great deal of that effect has to do with both the content of the novels as well as the reader's interpretation and their critical breakdown. Both of these camps of critical thought are important to recognize, and that they portray the spectrum of individuality and interpretation and what various women find empowering and disempowering. The problem lies in that many readers and writers are unconscious of this process, whether in selecting what is empowering to them and purposefully integrating it into their lives, or not realizing the disempowering gendered inequality represented, and that this inequality has the power to seep into their lives without them being aware. Readers and writers need to be more aware and critical of the erotic and romantic material marketed toward women today. In regard to writing the book, James notes, "I wrote the thing for myself, really. It's my fantasy." When literature has the ability to influence how people think, believe, and how they value something or someone, it is imperative to read critically and pursue literature, especially in the erotic romantic genre aimed at women, to pursue literature that is empowering to women in regard to their sexuality as well as their entire being. It is only through active participation and critical examination of content that a woman's voice will be empowered. Thank you.
Our fourth and final presenter of the entire afternoon is James Cochran. Brianna wrote his bio, and